hey guys, I guess it's Friday. We seem to be doing these things on Fridays, which is great. I don't know how it happened that way, but works out for our schedules. It is a rainy Friday, and we're gonna timestamp this in the history books. It is the 31st of January, 2025, and we're here out in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. And we just had 17 straight days of sun.
That's right. That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But today, it is raining like the dickens.
Yeah, we're catching up.
What everybody feels Oregon is like in January, even us, it's happening. So you may hear a little bit of noise back and forth. We were joking. We were blaming it on the Democrats and DEI. I can say that.
He'll cut it out.
He'll probably cut it out, but it doesn't matter. Everyone knows I'm joking because they know we're a bunch of lefty, liberal, agriculturally based people and 2 teachers. So we have known Erich 7-8 years, something like that.
I'm just gonna believe you.
We're just gonna go with it.
Yeah.
So we're here at Ricochet, in Ricochet's winery.
Yes.
Which is a really cool thing to say, man. Which is a really cool thing to say. We were just talking here when we were getting started and showing Dean around like how this got built. That we were at Mom and I went to go visit Erich one day, and he said I did a thing, and took us across the street, and there was tractors and earth movers and all kinds of stuff going on in here. And going back to how long we've known each other, I remember, again, Ricochet was the side hustle, and you were doing stuff, and you're like, I want to do this. And I have this vision for Pinot that I tried to talk him out of. We'll get back to that later. But I'm glad he didn't listen to anything I said. But here you are, Ricochet, McMinnville. We're in the barrel room. It's a great place. Got some custom crush, got some stuff going on. I know Dean's gonna get some shots. We gotta see that basket press. We gotta get that girl out there.
Yeah, it's my favorite toy.
And it's a really cool thing because you've got games at a tasting room and all kinds of stuff, and it's set up that you come to the tasting room wine bar situation, and there's production happening.
Yeah.
Like we've seen that in breweries and microbreweries, right? Where like you sit down, you can look through the glass behind the bar, watch what's going on. Now you can do it in wine styles. With a Z. And you may even get a little, hey, try this, or like, come check this out. So let's start with talking about this place.
Okay.
A little bit. A vision, a dream. Let's just see. I don't know.
A little bit of building the plane as you fly it, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I had 5 years under my belt at Ricochet, and as you guys know, my tasting room was a 2 foot by 3 foot stainless steel cart on casters, right? And I would just wheel it around to find some place. And that's kind of where I got the notion, or I saw the effect of when I had people come in and do a tour and a tasting with me. It was in the production space, and it was so novel for people because even if they had wine collections and knew things about wine, they didn't really have access to the process, which is such a strange thing. Like you mentioned breweries, you can sit at a bar at most breweries, like an urban brewery, and they're making the beer right in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's the same, it's kind of apples to apples. It's fermentation. We all use forklifts. We all use tanks. It's dirty. Yeah. And for whatever reason, the wine world and that sort of standard tasting room model is, let's keep that separated, and let's really make this a fancy place and create a different aesthetic, and present the wines which are sophisticated, but really without the context of like what went into making that. And even some wineries, the sales team and the production team, it's the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And so making my wine across the street, I just finished I was going into my 6th vintage, and we're literally across the street, as you mentioned. Yeah. And this building is a 7,000 square foot building that was some sort of manufacturing machine, building place. I have no idea yet, but it smelled like diesel fuel in here, and they had welding. Actually, this barrel room was a welding space. And I walked across the contractors that built out that winery that I was working at Harper Voigt, bought this space. And so they showed it to me back in end of March of 2024 and said, hey, what do you think? And I said, this needs to be a winery. Keep in mind, I have no money. And you guys know that it's usually a pretty capital intense thing, and sometimes they're vanity projects and all that. But the side hustle for me had already become a hustle. I no longer had a day job. I survived the pandemic, and suddenly I have this potential space, but I had to wait on it. But I told them what I would do. I said, you should put a barrel room here. This is where I put drains. This is what I would do with the space. Yeah. And before any letter of intent or signing of a lease, they started building it out. So I came in a couple of months later and saw what they were doing, and basically I had to make a decision. So do I shit or get off the pot, basically? And so gratefully I have people support me, and I put together a group of investors within a month. I bought my equipment in 6 weeks. I had electricity the day before harvest started, but we got everything set up from a production standpoint as fast as possible. And most of my winemaking friends and colleagues thought I was crazy. Like that doesn't happen typically.
No sleep during harvest. Now no sleep going into harvest.
There's still
already.
no sleep. There's still no sleep. Trust me. Still no sleep. Wow. As soon as I sit down, I'm screwed. But it worked out beautifully. And then sort of kind of bringing that idea of I didn't have my own place, so now I have 6 micro winery, tenants as well. Some of which it's their very first label. Like they did 3 tons. That's kind of where I started. So it's that rising tides, indie mixer kind of vibe every day. And then we also rolled out some AstroTurf and created a really cool. We don't call it a tasting room. I mean, it's not a tasting room. It's in the production space, as you mentioned. The tanks are right there. In fact, I just cleaned out a tank last week. And I accidentally spritzed someone on the other side, and they thought it was awesome. And then they got to ask what I was doing. My tenants, if they're doing stuff, I encourage them to showcase what's coming out of their barrels and interact. Absolutely. But that space has been, we call it like a tasting space or wine bar, or wine lounge. There's no like good word for what that space is. But we already have locals coming. Like today is happy hour, so we have people local coming, which is a whole other thing tasting rooms don't even do. Like they don't cater to the people who live here.
Right.
And so I wanted this to be sort of pinkies down, pinkies in, make sophisticated wine, show the process, be more immersive, offer a little bit of insight and education, and just let people, empower people. Like not top down, not pretension. Don't tell them what's in the bottle. Don't tell them what they're tasting. Let them explore it. And if they start with yum or yuck, great. Sure. If they have questions, then we empower them, and then yes, if it's harvest or even today, if I got time and I see people tasting, I'll say, hey, you want to check out a basket press? Let me explain to you how this works. Do you want to stick your head in the bladder press? It's turned off, I promise. And that's where you see people just kind of go, I get it now, because it's tangible. It's tangible.
Yeah. People are out of touch with it, and it's a really great. It's an educational factor, so especially with both of you here, I'm going to talk education,
sure.
English teachers and things like that. But I want to jump to the indie wine mixer really quick too, which it's incredible. When we were talking last week, and you were like, you asked her a few months ago when you were like, so I've trademarked indie wine mixer. That is my thing. It is a program. I can do that because there's, you get the Southern Oregon version, Thanksgiving, and you've claimed Memorial Day weekend.
I don't know how that happened.
Everyone else has got this and that weekend, and everyone's open, and Highway 99 is it's a mess.
Well, that whole thing happened by, all these things happen by... like it's serendipitous, right?
Yeah.
You throw the pasta against the wall and see if it sticks. Yeah. My expectation as a general pessimist is like, it's not going to stick. But then when it does, you follow the market and you double down. It's the same for wine. If I make a wine and no one digs it, I could love it. It doesn't really matter what I think. And vice versa, I could say, I really don't dig this wine. I don't think I stuck the landing, and it sells out. Yeah. So really, it's paying attention to your audience and what the market's saying. And the whole Memorial Day thing was I didn't have a tasting room, and that's a huge tasting room, like open house. Like all 99W is just wine tourists trying to fit in as many wineries in a day. They can sleep it off on Monday, right?
Right.
And I didn't have that space, or a place. So I invited my other indie winemaker friends that are in the same situation, and we just started a Memorial Day thing. And it was downtown McMinnville, and again, a lot of locals.
Yeah.
I was thanked by locals saying thanks for a community event, which really wasn't my thought. I just wanted to maybe make some bucks. But it became, you guys know, it's a very convivial space and event where it's the winemakers and people get to hear the story. And I just think people really, it's a different event. And people like supporting the small fry, the grassroots. And I just think like it's more authentic, and that's like, I think that was like the word of the year last year, and it totally makes sense. Like we came out of this pandemic and like people just really like want authentic experiences. They want connection more than ever before. And you know, the Indie Wine Mixer could have been a one and done. And it just continues to grow.
Two of them, well, three of them?
We have three now. Our friends Sound of Vision, they hosted one in their place in Medford, or I should say Talent, in Southern Oregon. And I'm trying to find a fourth one. So the idea is to have 4-year quarterly.
Ooh,
so we might be trying to do one in Central Oregon as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
And now that you have the space, the one in Mac, the original,
is here.
Can happen here.
Yeah, I don't need to pay for a venue.
Yeah.
And this year, like I have, you know, a very large like frontage concrete pad out there. And Zane and I just this morning were just talking about like, well, now we can do live music. I don't have a noise ordinance here.
Not out here.
So, you know, we're next to a concrete mixing plant. So
Right.
now we have a little bit more flexibility in how we play the mixer. Yeah.
Go for it, Mom. We realize.
Well, I wanted to make sure people knew about, because you're talking about how you thought about the marketing and what to do, and that you were going to be more casual with it. But you have all these wonderful events in this space. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, I mean, some of it is just paying for the rent. so there is some degree of pragmatism there, but
Sure.
So there, you know, what I want this space to be is, you know, obviously it's Ricochet, it's my winery, so I have my club. There's always going to be those events. We do like a blending seminar for the club. Now I have more space to do that. It's a little easier to access my own barrels for that. But my open house now is not just Ricochet. My open house now is an event that includes the tenants that are making wine here as well. So we're calling it Ricochet et al. And so I'm trying to figure out ways to incorporate the tenants. There'll be pop-ups, and so they can do individual stuff. But we're thinking, you know, we have a Valentine's dinner. We're hosting the big game, you know, there are so many opportunities. We were doing NFL football on Sundays. What winery does that?
Right.
You know, and it's been great. People come in, they get a bottle of wine, they order a pizza to be delivered, and they watch a game for 3 hours.
And,
you know.
And the other thing, if I may, is that gives the regular guy, you know, a place to go and enjoy wine, but it's not, you know, pinkies up.
Correct.
You know, and so I just think it's brilliant to use this building the way that you have.
Thank you. Well, and here's the deal. You know, we can go pinkies up.
Oh,
so
sure.
we can have,
we
had that lovely tasting.
Yeah.
So I think it's giving opportunities. So yeah, if you just want to pop in and hang out on the indoor patio and have a glass, read a book and have a glass, or do happy hour on a Friday, that's over there. That can be yum or yuck the whole time. And it's been really fun in that space so far. We're having a really great start. Like we hit the ground running.
Yeah.
We had 2 weeks. I gave Zane 2 weeks to design. Like we designed it, we laid it out, and then we just got, and it's building. But then we still want to be able to offer private tastings, winemaker tastings. Like you can book me. We've already had a number of like corporate sort of like retreat kind of things. They order the charcuterie or they bring their own caterer. And so that's a different experience. Then it's a little more elevated, but that's the expectation. And I think it's managing those expectations because again, in that sort of old tasting room mentality where it's all elevated, you're totally alienating people that like good wine, but frankly don't want to deal with, you know, the shit show out there, or they don't want to feel condescended to, or, you know, they want to learn, but they don't want to feel dumb.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And so that's what that space is for. Here, it can be more educational. We can do food pairings. And so I think it's giving that spectrum, because wine is sophisticated and it is a craft. But, you know, if the Italians are throwing Chianti in a water glass, like we can, you know, like
come on.
we can dial it down a little bit.
It's farming, y'all. It's
But
ag.
I know when we came to a tasting just recently when there was charcuterie and we tasted several wines and you pulled from the barrels and all that. That is, that's sort of an upper, more sophisticated, I guess I would say, take on it. And I enjoyed that. Totally. I just think when you first opened this, when we first walked through it one time and it was totally empty with you, I just, I haven't heard so much about your marketing plan or whatever you want to call it. And I just keep saying, that guy's brilliant. Because
Or fortunate.
but you have made the most of the space that you have here.
Well, and I thank you. That means a lot to me. A lot of it, gratefully, I started at Domaine Serene, which is I learned all the things, and which people don't. You can farm things out now, but that was a great place to start from, like a cleanliness and like the use of space. When I was at Illahee, we went from I think 5,000 to 10,000 cases like overnight. So how do you utilize space, right? They didn't have a tasting room. The bar in my tasting space is from Illahee. So it was on casters. So that's like sort of faking it to make it, right? Like how do you utilize the space? And then certainly at day ones, I had all these different both winemaking sort of experiences from like how to approach the craft. But then there is the marketing side and like the ethos and what you want to be. So when I saw this space, it actually worked out beautifully. Most first harvests in a winery, they don't really go too smoothly. Yeah. But for me, I could figure out like where do we load the fruit for sorting versus where do we how do we make sure it's efficient, and then how do we also make sure that people are we can still have a space over there. How do we utilize this space because these have to come in and out. So I feel like the vision has worked out well in terms of floor plan and utility, but a lot of that is just because I just took all my experiences and went, okay, I know. It's kind of like substitute, when I was a substitute teacher, right? And then you have the mentor teacher, but you're like, the way you're a mentor is, I'm not going to do that. So I think a lot of the experience is actually seeing things that don't work, as opposed to being like, because there's no lesson learned in things that do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Or it's not as I don't know what's the right word. It's not as poignant.
Right, because it's them exploring themselves.
Yeah.
What the lesson is.
Right. But we're still flying the plane as we build it here. I mean, I have tenants. I'm a landlord now. I'm a facility manager. Things break. And so that kind of stuff is never going to change. Sure. Working with people are people. That's the part that never changes.
Right.
There's very little control there, but all you can do is try to create a welcoming space for everyone, be it consumer, be it the guy who owns the place, and the people that work here and make wine here. And I got to tell you, it has been really, truly positive here. Everyone gets along, and that's also not true for a lot of collaborative spaces.
No, the energy here is true, and the energy here is honest, and that's one thing that's always been, part of your marketing and taglines and things you will say is that it's honest wine. It's like, look, I'm thrilled to work with the vineyards that I get to work with. I'm thrilled to be able to do and you've sought out some vineyards to play with or take a chance on this or that, or someone will call and say, hey, I got X amount, and you're like, I have no room in the budget or in the barrel room, but I'm going to take it because I want to make it, and it's going to happen. Your winemaking career. 20?
Yeah, I started in 2004.
2004.
Moved out here, sight unseen, and that was my first vintage at Domaine Serene. Just came out as a harvest grunt.
Yeah.
And then I left after 3 years.
Sure.
2 hip surgeries. Kind of burned out. Wasn't getting the bug at that point. I had no context for other places to make wine. So really good education, but particularly after a hip surgery, I couldn't walk. I just thought I was done. And that's when I became a teacher. I got my master's and taught high school English for 6 years, and then I became a statistic and burned out on that pretty
Yep. Sure.
So I always like to joke, when you burn out, what do? Well, you go back to making alcohol.
Well, and that's it's called Ricochet because of it's you've got some layers of why you called it Ricochet.
I've had an existential crisis since I was like 12. It's just like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always wanted to be a doctor, and then I went to college, and like the first semester, I was like, oh, I have to study on Fridays. I don't want to be a doctor. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a circuitous path, and thus the name for the brand. But hopefully I have a 10-year lease now on this building, so hopefully it's
straight up.
Yeah, I think we figured out what I'm meant to do. And it took me a while because I do love teaching and I love sales. Like I'm a salesperson first, or a communicator at first, which I think is an essential skill in this business.
A little bit.
More and more, right?
Bit, yeah.
But then for me, I think it was the moment that I started making my own wine, that's when I got the bug, because it's the pressure. Right? Once you buy the fruit and you have no one writing your work orders, right? Like I know how to do the things, but the risk was never on me until it was. And then now with my ADHD and my energy, I'm a very kinetic person. This is a seasonal gig. Harvest is very different for 10 weeks. This time of year, we're checking in on the babies.
Yeah.
We're starting to do blending, so now we're starting to get the craft. Summer is sales and jazz hands. And then you start all over again. And it complements all the sides of my brain. And so it took me a little bit to get there. But I wouldn't trade all those experiences for anything, because if it wasn't for that and that existential sort of deliberating, I wouldn't be here.
Do you want to tell us about some of your wines? One thing I want to share with our viewers is that there's always a quote or on the back of the bottle, and this one's from Gloria Steinem.
Oh, yeah.
Nature doesn't move in a straight line. As part of nature, neither do we. Yeah.
That one's special because I actually
Yeah.
got Gloria Steinem's permission on that one.
Did you?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, because it's not old enough to be part of the public record.
Oh, cool.
So I had to contact her office, and I got one of these, her executive assistant just went, "Hey, Miss Steinem."
That's so
Cool.
rad.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, it's really cool.
Does it? And I know that you explained this. Do you want to try?
I can try. So I
Different
didn't.
bottle?
I always just say I always want. Yeah. So this is the original. These are the two original labels. So the first, I didn't want it to be some austere family crest or something like that, because that wasn't my vibe. That's why I didn't catch the bug the first time around. But I also didn't want to be super irreverent. A lot of urban wineries get real fun up front, and the art can be great, but then it doesn't really convey. And they can be great wines, but if the bottle's just on a shelf, people make decisions on that, and there's going to be correlations. So I didn't want the equivalent of graffiti or whatever, on cartoons or whatever. So I'm a kind of a postmodern art guy, and so that's where this kind of started. And then obviously the chevron, there's the sort of the ricocheting, and then the colors. The original idea was what you see is what you smell or taste. So this idea of synesthesia, right? Okay. So Pinot's more red fruited, right? Grüner means green and has these apple notes, so that's the green the green apple chevron. But then I started playing around with others, but that was the original idea.
Cool.
Yeah.
You want to tell it? Is it time that we can?
You want to dip into something?
Let's
You want some
dip into
Grüner?
something.
Sure.
And the other thing too
Let's
is
let's wet the whistle.
let's wet the whistle. We've got great background. We've got all these things. We've got the great quotes in the back, but also the fact that percentages of your sales go to social justice things.
Yeah.
And even in a
Redemptive.
wine mixer, you've got 4 different charities and such that you work with, because again, your commitment to your commitment to that and your belief in that, which is I've always appreciated. You're while I'm not making any money and everything's on the line, I'm going to continue to do the right thing by the community.
Part of the honest winemaking thing is also to be an honest broker. Me personally, I'm just getting too old for bullshit, right? And part of that is being disingenuous. It's again inauthentic. I think Oregon nice drives me crazy out here. I'm an East Coast guy where you kind of call. You call it as you see it. And out here, we can be more passive aggressive, and we're very nice to one another. But sometimes it's not actionable, right? We can say things like, "Man, we really should help the homeless crisis that happened in our neighborhood." Yeah. But then it's just that. It's just words, right? And so because I was a teacher. I actually also taught in juvenile detention in Marion County. I voluntarily went to jail, I'm burned out on that too. But I just see systems that aren't working, and I tell people all the time that wine's not important. At least not in the same way. It can be culturally important, but we're not even a culture. Like, it's not acculturated like France and Spain and Italy. It's very different in America. I think that's why it's been put on a pedestal to some degree. It's like post-prohibition, we took this thing and elevated it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not really of the people in the same way. And so, in my view, if it's not something that's important, how can I contribute? So that's where the 5% of my profits go to different grassroots nonprofits. So, they can't be these, I'd almost rather that no one heard of them, and they're local and they're for our community here. So I have helped with formerly incarcerated our neighbors in need, I call them, to get back on their feet. Currently on the board for Encompass Yamhill Valley, which helps with the homeless crisis here, for which one of my wines actually specifically raises money for them. Suicide prevention is one of my key things, post-pandemic particularly. Veterans, the Memorial Day, it's actually psychedelic therapy for those with crippling PTSD. And so the whole idea is to get people to bounce back. That's the other sort of the double entendre for why I named it Ricochet. And it just, most of it is like my 5% doesn't necessarily move the needle, but it brings awareness. And then hopefully, the one thing that I think sharing a bottle does do is a lot of people do have those words, and like we try to solve the world's problems over a bottle of wine, but then with the bottle of wine, with the purchase, there is some action.
I think back to, we were talking about this in the podcast with Luke at Statera, that Luke was the first wine tasting I did at the old wine bar, and you were the second and third before pandemic life changed things, or even post-pandemic life, but we were all trying to figure out what to do. I mean, trying to survive post-pandemic
I'm sorry.
was still a little bit, cheers.
Get after it.
Right, it's still a little bit of a struggle, and to see how you went through that and to come to here. So 1421 Alpha Drive?
1421 Alpha Drive. Next to the concrete mixing plant.
Concrete mixer. Apparently a chocolate person. I don't know.
There's a chocolate guy right over here.
That
chocolate. Yeah, Joe makes good chocolate.
And you make a variety of wines. You've got some white Rhone blend styles. You've got Pinot. You've got Grüner. You've got the best Pinot Blanc that people used to think that he made it for me specifically for the wine bar because I would buy
you edged me
almost all of it.
You validated it. Yes.
Almost all of it. I made 2 barrels worth. I'm like, sweet. I will take 48 cases.
You're welcome to buy them. Just keep buying them, man. I'll save it for you. When I launched the brand, I moved out here for Pinot Noir. So to your chagrin at the time, it was well before locals had Pinot fatigue. I think there was still, people were still coming out. It's still new. It's only been 40 or 50 years, right? So it's still this infant of an industry, or as far as the varietal. And we owe so much to why this valley is growing all the other varietals because of this grape, right? And so, and I would also say, if you can make Pinot Noir, you can make any of the other ones. My Tempranillo is a chip shot. It's a thick-skinned grape. It doesn't rain.
Sure.
It's got plenty of antioxidants. Like, if you don't keep your eye on Pinot, it's going to become vinegar. That's the easier path. And, it's balancing it, how much tension, when do you pick it? It just rains. Like, this is a struggle, even with experience, intuition, knowledge. Every harvest, it's almost like it's a reset, and then what happens is like now you're applying your knowledge to a completely new script, right? It'd be like you've taught Hamlet for the whole time, and then you got to teach measure for measure, and you're like, well, I know Shakespeare, I get it, but it's a completely different script.
Sure.
So you have the knowledge how to interpret and all that, and then I think we talked the other day, like, then you don't even know what you have. Like I'm still assessing what I have because Pinot takes this time. It goes through this very awkward phase. So I'm still about 50% Pinot Noir, but then I don't make Chardonnay. Thus the Pinot Blanc in a Chablis style. The Grüner, I love Grüner. It grows really well out here. The white Rhone blend. So like playing around with some of those other things. And it turns out the market happens to like when you're ABC or all but Chardonnay. because particularly out here. And so again, like these things could have been, I would have always kept making Pinot even if like people like stiff on me. But the other product, they're all geeky. A Pet-Nat, that's super geeky.
Well, I was going to say, and I love the fact that you gave this some real, its own unique attention, like a real label change and a real different, marketing media thing on that.
And the quotes in French.
And the
What's in French? Le Ressources.
and we'll load up some links and stuff so you can go to Erich's website and see some of these labels up close because this one's gorgeous with the coil on it. And then Mom picked up. I wanted to get into, here it is. We'll go back to Rome with some Syrah, and your daughter did.
Yeah. So this was one of the first ones where the label changed, and we were still maybe tail end of the pandemic, and my then 8-year-old was probably just terribly bored, but she's been helping me during harvest and whatnot. She actually loves harvest. Like, it's actionable. So, when it's like take your kid to work day. I mean, I remember having to just like sit and watch my dad at a desk or whatever. Like there was nothing happening. I had no idea. If it's like, hey, let's do some punch downs. Like kids like punch downs. Sure. So she's part of the process. She sees the process. And she also saw particularly the homeless crisis blow up in this neighborhood. Right, all these streets in this industrial area were all, it's kind of Skid Row, dilapidated RVs. It got really, really bad, and we don't have any resources here. Like, so my daughter is very compassionate. She sees that, she knows that I give 5%, and she said, "Dad, will you make a wine specifically that gives 5% to that cause?" And when she did so, she drew in crayon a version of my label. So this is actually a rendering of her label. This is all unsolicited. Like I didn't ask her to do this. And then I said, "Of course, sweetie, that's a great idea. What kind of wine do you want me to make?" And she said, "Purple." So there you have Syrah, right?
Yeah.
This year it's going to be a GSM. It's still continuing. And then 5% goes to that group that I'm now a board member of.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And to play with Tempranillo and the fact that you get to play with fruit Washington side of the river to the north and to the east, from stuff from down south, stuff from here to the western extremes.
And there was some of that's unintentional. So like getting the Syrah, that was the year when the Pinot Noir almost all died. We thought we weren't going to get any Pinot. So everyone was looking on the other side of the river just to have anything. I had lost my Grüner contract, but I had learned that Les Collines Vineyard in Walla Walla had Marsanne, Roussanne, and Viognier, and I didn't think I was ever getting Grüner again. So I'll do that. And so sometimes winemaking decisions and business decisions, they kind of work out for you. And then it's like, well, now I have 3 white wines, but I'm not getting rid of any of them because I'm known for my Grüner. People love the MRV. People dig the Pinot Blanc. So it's like some of those things kind of fell into my lap. And then it's again sort of following it and then becoming just a better winemaker because you're always learning about the typicity of that grape and the terroir and all that, and it takes time to do that. So if you keep switching your brand, then you're not getting sort of this like longitudinal learning, right? And certainly Pinot's another good example of that. 20 years here. I mean, we go to technical tastings as a trade. And we're still learning about this grape. And so I think like once you dial it in, it's like, okay, I'm a Grüner guy. People ask if I'll make a Chardonnay. It's like, why?
Sure.
Why complicate things? It's also expensive.
Well, and it can be, anybody who knows us and watches these or knows Mom and I, we're big Chardonnay people, but Chardonnay being the more or less the other side of the Burgundian thing, like Pinot, I'm like, it has exactly the same kind of need and attention. Right. And,
And by the way, everyone thinks that I am a Chardonnay, like, hater. And I'm not. Yeah. But, and maybe I would have made a Chardonnay, like, after the Grüner. Like, some of those decisions. There was I learned how to make Chardonnay at Serene, and we made it 3 different ways, from like super big and round and doing batonnage every day to like Chablis, just let it alone. So like, I get it. There is a nice spectrum there, but Grüner gets short shrift. Like, think about this. Like, it's about rising tides for my tenants and for indie folks. Grüner is like, this needs a lifting. Now more and more people are making Gruner because they're like, oh my gosh, there happen to be other grapes. So I don't think you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are folks that say, I don't want to make Pinot because there's too much of it. I think we owe an homage to this grape and Chardonnay as well. But then if there's an avenue to say, you know what, this is also a Willamette Valley varietal now.
100%.
Gruner doesn't grow well in many places. We're a Gamay region now.
Yeah.
Where else does Gamay grow other than Beaujolais as well as Willamette Valley? So I think we're still learning, and we can still have these rising tides of varietals as well.
Well, I'm looking at.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, as much as we are fond of Chardonnay, we bought a case of your MRV. 2 weeks.
Two cases.
Two cases. 2 cases.
He didn't tell you about the second.
It's when I was walking out of the first new wine mixer, and I'm like, "Do you have any?" You're like, "I have 2 boxes left. It's almost done."
So
I put them in the car.
I don't recall that they lasted long at our house.
Yeah, good.
I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, I literally got it to be Mom's summer sipper
Yeah.
or something like that.
And that's the purpose.
And I was like, I don't know.
And there's no need to be ponderous about it.
That was beautiful.
I mean, you can if you want to.
gorgeous.
If you want to, apply some W-set training to that and stick the nose in and do all that and
was
try to
gorgeous.
suss it out. But also, I enjoy that wine on the patio.
Yeah.
you know?
It's lovely.
So that's great.
And it was beautiful being on the coast, even though I didn't have the wine bar at the time, but just being out there with that salinity, that salty air, and being out seeing what's going on, and just having all that feeling and having that wine particularly. And it was beautiful. And like you said, kind of the more Chablis style to a Pinot Blanc, you're applying that. And it is round and wonderful and beautiful. One thing I do appreciate about your lineup is there is variation.
Yeah.
Which is unique. You're not lining it up like we're going to go this way or this
Right.
way or this way, and that you showcase some different places around the Northwest, and you have these relationships with the vineyard and the farmer, and you want to know what's going on because it's important to you.
Yeah, and those partnerships matter. I mean, I'm still kind of a handshake kind of guy.
Yeah.
Particularly when you find like good fruit, good site, good people. You want to hold on to that, and particularly if you do a single vineyard, that vineyard also is putting their names on the label. So then suddenly it becomes like my brand. If my MRV from Lake Colleen gets traction, people learn about Lake Colleen, then like it lifts them up, and then but their fruit and the name of that vineyard there's a little gravitas there, right?
Absolutely.
Like they're I mentioned Lake Colleen in Charleston, South Carolina, and people go, oh, Lake Colleen. So there's like that mutual benefit there. And then what's really great is the longer you work with a vineyard, because I'm always buying. I don't have my own estate, so I don't have my finger on the pulse, and I generally can't like get to the vineyard all the time.
Sure.
So once you have those partnerships, they know what I want.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to drive 6 hours to Walla Walla to check the bricks. They know exactly where I want it. They give me the data, and I trust them. I think it's all about the trust as well.
Oh, sure.
That's so great.
Well, I was just going to ask if there's anything else you'd like to share with us?
Is there anything left to share?
Yeah.
We're open Friday through Monday, 12 to 6.
Yes.
Here is a lovely barn door table.
Yeah.
A community plate.
That's
that
right.
Came from barn.
That's a barn
It
wall.
was like
it's a
600 years old. This is
It's like petrified. Yeah, beautiful stuff. That was dope. That was just given to me. So
which is
grateful.
where you can get here in the barrel room and do one-on-one tasting and
Hey, you just
culinary
hop on the
experience.
talk on the website, and you can book a spot for that. Walk in, whatever. We're and I guess the other thing is like thinking about it is everything we're doing here is I don't like the word fun. People keep asking if I'm having fun building a winery. It's deeply stressful, but it's engaging and it's mine. There's right, but I do think creating the atmosphere for our guests that this is just a fun place, like it, and I enjoy coming here. And it's got to be
That's key.
it's got to be a place I make wines that I want like for me.
Yeah.
And then if you like it, great. But also like I need to design this place to kind of fit myriad personalities and just be a good time, And so far, we're doing it.
Absolutely. Yes, you are. Absolutely.
What's something people may not know, like your secret life as a rock star behind the scenes, or a superhero or something? What's something?
My first job,
Okay.
I was Chuck E. Cheese.
That may be the best one yet.
Yeah, I was Chuck E. Cheese. Sometimes Jasper T. Jowls. Sometimes Mr. Munch. Never Henrietta the chicken. I don't even think we had a Henrietta. But I will tell you, have pity on anyone wearing like mascots. Just it's terrible.
That's
Particularly when
funny.
kids they're like, I know that you're a person in there, and then they kick you where it counts.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my god, how do I do a dance now?
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Cool.
so that's probably a good one.
Yeah. I like it. That's fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for the time.
Oh my gosh, thank you,
We've been
guys.
wanting to do this, and there's some print coming too. Like this is not just digital. Like, can't wait to sit down and talk about
I love
it.
analog.
Because seeing what you've done, again, back to how long we've known you and enjoyed these wines and pushed the wines and worked with the wines and seeing it from vintage to vintage and how this has grown, it's just, I feel so connected with you.
go.
And it's close, and our time out on the coast together and here and up in Portland and all the things.
You've had your own Ricochet.
I had my own Ricochet.
No, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
And here I am back in a barrel room.
I need some more if you want to get back in that trade.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
No,
So-
you guys, you know I love you. Nah, bring it in.
On a rainy Friday, getting ready for biz.
Bring it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
You guys get down here for happy hours. You heard the hours. Ricochet Wine Company, 1421 Alpha Drive out in McMinnville,
Yeah.
or Mac if you want to be
Mactown.
local.
Mactown.
And there's just some great stuff that goes on here. Wines with Intention, a group of wineries. Fun. Fun happens. Or just come read a book and hang out. And you can have deep conversations about existential crisis and anything else.
Depends how much time you have.
Right. And yeah, we're gonna go taste through some more of these and
Let's do it.
the do. But highly recommend when you're coming out to wine country, make this a point to come see. Make this a point to come hang out. You may see some stuff going on in action, and maybe ask like, "Hey, you want to come over with your glass and get involved?" And it really helps connect people to what's going on, because there is some disconnect between the vineyards and the farming, to the barrel room, to the glass, to what's
Yeah.
happening.
And to that point, just real quick, the best way to learn, because we are doing more events. You asked about that, and we want to do some educational series.
Yeah.
We want to do some live music. We want to, we're going to do like an Oscar watch party. But really, it's like we want to start doing. One of my attendants wants to do. Brian of Human Cellars. He teaches at Chemeketa. He's the vineyard guy down there, and he's like, "Can we do seminars and teach people terroir and do something like that?" And so the best way is to like hop on the newsletter, because that's where all the information is, and like you just go to the website, plug in your email. But we're really going to try to have like the mixer, the open house, that. But we also want to have that educational part too. So those are still in the creation stage, but if folks keep an eye out, there's gonna be some cool stuff coming.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for jumping in. Thank you, Dean, again for setting up, doing the do. We'll see you guys next week. See you next time. Bees and water, y'all. Thank you. Cool, man.
Cut.